This is TJ with Tech Made Easy. Welcome to the channel. So today's video we're going to be working on upgrading a system. We're going to be upgrading the RAM, the CPU, the hard drive, the video card. In this particular one we're going to be adding a fan as well. This is a support video of my other gaming videos. We're using a HP Z420, one of my favorite pre-built workstations. Now even though we're using an HP for this, all computers are really pretty much made of the same components, and how you exchange those components is pretty much the same. So whether you have an HP or not, you can still watch this video on how to upgrade your RAM, your video card, your hard drive, and your CPU. Now in this one we're going to be adding a fan to it. I like to add a fan to it to help cool this GPU. So let's go ahead and get started. We're first going to start with the RAM, the CPU, the hard drive, the GPU, and then we're going to add that fan. All right, let's go ahead and open up the case and let's get started. Really quick before we open up the case and start replacing everything or showing you how to replace it. The reason why we're doing this is that you're going to buy these used, obviously, and they may not come configured the way you want them configured for gaming. Especially the video card you're going to have to replace, because the video cards that they sold these with were mostly for CAD, maybe some video editing, or it was just a desktop computer. But the CPU, sometimes the CPU, you might be able to game with the CPU that it comes with, but a lot of times you're going to be swapping the CPU out. The RAM, a lot of these come with 16 gigs of RAM. Sometimes they only come with 8. Or maybe you want to upgrade to 32 gigs of RAM, 64 gigs of RAM. So that's why we're doing this. And again, these make great gaming PCs, but you have to know which Xeons to put in them. And so that's why I definitely suggest that you click the like and the bell button. Or depending on when you watch this, I might already have the video out where I've tested all the Xeons and compared which card to run them with. So at any rate, let's go ahead, open up the case, and let's get started. Okay, first thing we're going to do is we're just going to remove the side case, and on the HP it's pretty simple. You just got this flap here. On other PCs, a lot of times they've got screws on the back here. You'll have to pull them out. So now also in this HP 420, there's a shroud right here, and this shroud here, basically what it's meant to do, the power supply sucks air and it pulls air through here and helps, supposedly it's helping to cool whatever you have in here with those CD-ROMs, and anyway, else maybe cool the memory here. I usually don't use these. I usually just take it out. You can keep it in if you want, but I just leave this fan here, and just because I'm trying to, you're still going to get airflow coming through these areas without this shroud. And what I usually do, and what I'll be showing you also, is how to turn up your fans here. I usually turn these up for gaming, 2 notches, just to help keep the case cooler. So let's go ahead and look at the RAM first though. So in your RAM here, and usually I always run in quad channel. These HPs can take up to 4 DIMM slots, and so you're going to have black, black and white, and you just want to make sure that you fill up the black and then the white later. So the other thing is this also has a fan cooling the memory here. So you just have to press on this green button here to release it. It plugs into the motherboard, so it kind of has to come up off of that. And it's plugged in right here. Usually I'll leave this on. You need to take this off to swap your RAM out or to add RAM. And so in this case, I'm just going to leave these RAM modules in here. But what you're going to want to do, and one thing I should explain that's really important, and I'll put a picture up on the screen, is what RAM goes into this HP Z420. Now, because this is a Xeon system, it takes ECC RAM, and that's error correction RAM. There's different speeds, and I would recommend getting the 1600 megahertz for RAM for upgrading. If it already came with some modules and they're 133, then just go ahead and get the 133. One thing I haven't done yet is I haven't really tested any speed difference between the 133 and the 16 megahertz. I'll end up doing that later in another video, so be sure to click the like and subscribe button to have that come up. Just because there are other platforms like the AMD, the DDR4, people do see some RAM speed differences. I don't know if the RAM speed is critical in one of these systems as it is when you get into those other systems. But definitely the minimum I'd put in here is 1,333 megahertz, preferably 1,600 megahertz. And so again, what you'll have here is you'll notice your RAM here, and I'll put up on the screen what you should be looking for on eBay when you look for this type of RAM. So let's say this system only came with 8 gigs of RAM, and there's 2 4s here, and you want to upgrade to 16. Then you would just buy 2 more 4s, and you would just slide these in here. So you'll notice here on the RAM, one of these sections is shorter than the other, so it's pretty easy. It's hard to put them in the wrong spot, but you're just going to put this down here. One thing I should mention, it's always good to ground yourself. Honestly, you can touch the case to ground yourself. I don't really wear anything to ground myself. I've never, in all the years building and upgrading computers, I've never had any problems shocking. Now I'm in a room that doesn't create a lot of static electricity, but if you're somewhere or you live somewhere where there's a lot of static electricity, you're going to want to keep that in mind. So we're just going to plug these in here, and they snap down in. Okay, so that's all there is. Let's say I just got these RAM modules in, put those in. Now when a computer boots up, it's going to give me 16 gigs of RAM. So this fan here is plugged into the motherboard right here. But we're just going to put this, I didn't unplug it. And again, I would only pull this up if I was replacing this RAM, or if I wanted to see what RAM was in the system, then I'd have to pull these RAM chips out to see what RAM is in it as far as the megahertz go. Again, these systems only take ECC RAM. ECC RAM, DDR3 ECC RAM in the past has been really inexpensive. I did notice it was starting to go up though. So that's one of the reasons why I like working with this system, is because it runs off of the the HP Z420 runs off of the X79 platform, which is a Xeon platform that takes DDR3 RAM. One of the reasons why I've liked it is because the RAM has been cheap in the past. You could get 16 gigs of RAM, say 4 sticks, for around 20 bucks. Now it's 35. So and it might be going up just because computer parts everywhere around the world. This is January 2021. It's hard to get parts. So that's possibly why it's gone up a little bit. I'm not sure. Usually there's lots of this RAM, and that's why it's cheap. It's used. So again, I usually don't use this right here. So that's how we're. That's what we need to do to upgrade the RAM. Okay, so when you're upgrading the RAM or adding more RAM to this Z4, the HP Z420, first you want to see what RAM came with the system. More than likely it's going to come with this DDR3 1600 megahertz RAM, or the DDR3 1333 megahertz. If it doesn't come with these, I would upgrade to the 1600. If it comes with the 1333, you can just go ahead and buy more RAM. So say it came with 2 sticks of 4s, then just get 2 more sticks of 4s. Probably cost you around $15 to get 2 more sticks of 4 gig RAM. And then Now the pricing I have up here is for 16 gigs of RAM, 4x4. You can by any means you can get whatever you want. You can get, if you want to go up to 32, you can get, you know, four 8 gigs or whatever you want to do there. But as far as the RAM goes itself for gaming, I would stick to the DDR3 1600 megahertz or the 1333 megahertz. Again, you might want to subscribe and hit the like button there. Like I said, I haven't done enough. I haven't tested the difference, see if there's any speed difference. On the Xeon systems, the memory doesn't always make a huge difference on the frames per second. But I am going to be testing that. I usually just use the 1600 megahertz RAM. But at any rate, this is what you're going to want to be looking for when you go on to eBay, is for 1600 megahertz. Sometimes they give you the megahertz, sometimes they just give you this model right here, the 12800R, which is the 16 megahertz. And again, it has to be ECC RAM. Sometimes when you put in ECC in the description, RAM will come up, but you have to really look at the description because sometimes it says it's non-ECC. So anyway, so then down here below the 1333, sometimes it'll say just the 10600R, but that is the 1333 megahertz. So that's what you need to know there for upgrading the RAM. Now I will say this much: RAM because I'm focusing on the HP Z420, and you might be watching this and you don't have a Z420 or you just have a regular system, you really have to find out what CPU you're running, what RAM is compatible with the motherboard that you're running, because RAM that you buy for, say, an Intel i7 is not the same RAM that you would buy for a Ryzen CPU. So again, this is just when it comes to replacing the RAM, you got to know what RAM to get for your system. I'm just explaining what is needed for this HP Z420. But if you have a Ryzen or an i7, more than likely you're not getting ECC RAM, and again, the RAM for an AMD CPU is different for the RAM than for an Intel CPU, whether it's a Xeon or one of the i7s, i9s. Okay, so the next thing we're going to work on is swapping out the CPU. Now, you'll need a screwdriver for this. This one here is extra long. It doesn't have to be this long. I use this one because some of the other cases I work in, it's just more convenient to have a long one like this. But you could have it like this, or a skinny one like this. So the thing that we have to do is, what you're going to notice here, I've got here sitting another CPU right here. And this is the Xeon E5-2667 version 2. This is one of my favorite gaming Xeons on this platform. And so what we're going to do is this is the heat sink, or the fan and heat sink for the CPU. We're going to go ahead and unscrew these screws here. And when you hear clicking, these are spring-loaded screws. And so once they're done, once that clicking's done, it's unscrewed all the way. And normally I'll put a little bit of pressure here because it'll want to pop up a little bit because it's kind of spring-loaded. And so I'm just going to unscrew these. And now, out of all the things that we're doing in this video, this one is the most crucial. You don't want to damage the CPU over here. And so you just got to be really careful changing the CPU out. This CPU fan is plugged into the motherboard right here. I'm not going to unplug it. I'm just going to set it to the side right here. Now, the one thing that you're going to want to do, you're going to notice this gray stuff on the CPU. That's thermal paste. It helps make contact with the heat sink. And so I'm just going to clean the thermal paste off of this heat sink here. And you can do this with alcohol wipes. This is just a baby wipe. So you'll want to clean that off. And I kind of just have to balance this here so it doesn't fall in. Now, the CPU itself is being held down by these clips here on the side. And hopefully, so there's this clip here, and then what it is right here, and I don't know if you'll be able to see it without me zooming in, but there is a black triangle here. And the reason why that's important is because on the CPU, there is a gold triangle. There's a gold triangle right here. And that's going to go right there. That's how you know how the CPU sits into the socket. Now, if you're doing an AMD system, the CPU is a little different. These actually don't have pins here. The pins are in here. And so you got to be really careful with those AMD because you can bend these pins here. You can bend these too, so you don't want to really mess around with this area here because you can bend a pin in here. So I'm just gonna, of course, again, you've got this gray thermal paste on. I'm actually gonna just take this one off right now. I'll go put it on my shelf with all my other CPUs. So what you're going to need though is you're going to need, when you upgrade, now some people, and again, I'm buying used CPUs. Some people, when you buy a CPU from them, they send you the thermal paste. Others don't, so you may have to go buy some thermal paste. It's not that much on Amazon. I don't know, $7-10 a tube. And I don't know which one's the best. There's people on there that swear by one over the other. I'm just going to use this one. It came with the CPU. I use both. So what I'm going to do now is, again, because I know, again, there's this gold corner here, and we got this black corner here. So I know that the CPU here has to line up with that. Now you got to be really careful putting this in, that you get it in the socket exactly. Sometimes you think it's in the socket, but it's not. So then you're just going to put this down, and so this one is going to go first, then this one. Just lock those under. There's little clips right here. Now, so what I'm going to do here is, some people just put a big glob in the middle. I like to do some, you don't want to do too much because you don't want it especially on these outside corners here. You don't want to do too much because you don't want it to overflow and get into the pin area underneath the CPU. But you want it to, and as you put this on, it adds pressure and it spreads that thermal paste around. So we'll just go ahead and drop these where our screw holes are. And I'm just going to put a little pressure on this fan and heat sink to get these started. And you'll just want to go across from each one. And once it's tight, don't try to tighten it past that. You'll break it. So you just need to go until it's tight. Don't try to crank it down after that. Okay, that's all there is. The motherboard will automatically sense the new CPU. If it doesn't follow through and go into Windows, that means there's a problem with the CPU. That's just one thing to recognize. But as long as it works, it may come up and say, hey, there's a new CPU, and you may have to hit a keystroke. Depends on your motherboard. And this one, though, it just automatically
will go ahead and go into Windows as long as everything's good. Okay, so that's really all there is to installing that CPU.
Okay, so after swapping out the CPU, one thing that we are going to do is we're going to go into the BIOS and we're going to increase the speed of this fan and the CPU fan. That way it'll help. In gaming, you just work your CPU and your video card harder. This will help keep your case a little cooler. I always like to increase the fan speed. I increase it enough where you don't really hear the difference, but it just helps in keeping the case cooler. So let's jump into the BIOS and let's see how to do that. Again, this is with the HP Z420 though. So how you do this in another system will be different. How you get into the BIOS will be different. So we're going to go in the BIOS. You just hit escape to do that and hit F10, and I'll show you that here right now. When your computer reboots, just hit the escape key or F10 and that'll take you into the BIOS. So once you're in the BIOS, then you're going to go over to the power settings, and in here you just use your arrow keys. And so we're just going to arrow over to power, go to thermal. Now mine's already set, but with your arrow key you can move this fan speed over. The default will be right here, and you're just going to move it over 2 spaces. That the fan is still very quiet right there, and it does a perfect job on keeping the CPU and the GPU cool. So just hit F10 to accept that, go back out here, and you're going to hit save and change and exit, and that will reset your fan speed.
Okay, so next we are going to install the GPU. Before we install the GPU, let's just go over different types of GPUs here. There's this type here of GPU. It doesn't take any power to run. And in fact, in the Z420s, most of them would come with a Quattro Pro video editing card. They aren't the greatest for gaming. They're more for video editing and AutoCAD, stuff like that. They don't make good gaming cards, and so you have to replace the one that comes with the HP Z420. And again, it doesn't take any power either. But you're going to notice also here, this is another, I think this is a GTX 970, and it doesn't take any power card. So you can just plug it right in, just like you do here. Let's take this one out though, just to show you how this works. So it depends on your case manufacturer. Sometimes your cards here are held down by screws. In fact, most of the time they are held down by screws. HP has a little module here, and it just snaps in place. It holds your cards down, so there's no screws involved there. So you just click on this, push that down, and then that comes down. And then to take a GPU card out, there's this little green slit right. There's this green thing that's a connector that's connected to the GPU PCI slot, and it's kind of a lock, so you have to push this way, and then you just pull this out and it'll come out. And sometimes you may have to, sometimes it doesn't come out that easy, so you may struggle a little bit, but that'll come out. If you for some reason break this, it's not the end of the world. Your card will still work. It just kind of, like I said, helps lock it in. So if you're going to put one of these, so most of your gaming cards are going to take up 2 slots. And so most of the time you're going to have to remove this right here. And me personally, when I'm doing these gaming systems, these pre-builts like from Dell or Lenovo or HP, I will move these here because they don't have a lot of fans in the front here. And so I'll kind of remove a lot of these. You don't have to remove all of them. Just for airflow. And so you're just going to push this down in there, and there's little tabs here that this kind of locks into, and then you just push these down and they snap, and that snaps that shut. Again, there's no power cord here, Now, on these systems that I have, my gaming systems that I recommend people buying, I recommend them buying the HP Z420 version 2. And all that is, it just means it takes a version 2 Xeon 2600 or a 1600. So it takes both the version 1 and version 2. The reason why I do that is because there's more CPUs available to run on these systems if you get a version 2. The problem is there's no model number that tells you it's a version 2. When you look them up on eBay, you just have to put in Z420 V2. But the reason why I mention that is because the version 1s, when they first came out, this is still a 600 watt power supply in version 1 and version 2. But for some reason, in version 1, it only came with one 6-pin. Or in version 1, it came with two 6-pins, but in version 2, it came with only one. I don't know why they did that. But let's put in a card that takes power here. So this version 1 comes with two 6-pins, and so I've got a GTX 1650 here, and so I'm just going to slide this in here, and I'm not going to put them all in, but again, so this one here, or I'm not going to lock them down because I'm just putting them in here just to show you. So this 6-pin goes here, and then we're ready to go. So now, other cards, like an RX 580, 570, they will take an 8-pin, and then your other NVIDIA cards. And this is another reason why I like these cases. And again, I mentioned the Dell because the T3610 is a great gaming. It takes the same CPUs and memory as this. And it's also another option for gaming with these Lenovo, or with the E5 2600 and 1600 version 2 CPUs. So this here is a 1660 Ti. And again, one of the reasons why I like this case is just because of how much room there is for the cards here. This is a medium-sized card, and again, I'm just going to plug this in here real quick. Now, the reason why I don't like the fact that it came with only one 6-pin is a lot of these cards here need an 8-pin, and they actually came with, a lot of them came with these adapters. When you buy them used, for some reason, a lot of people do not send this adapter with them when you buy them used. But you can either use this adapter, and we'll use this in a minute, but for this one, what we're going to do is we're going to use this adapter here. It's a 6-pin to 8-pin, and it will draw the same amount of electricity that you need for it. So you just plug that in here and plug it into here, and you're ready to go. Now, another option that you can do is you can use this, and you can use one of these. And we're gonna do this next. We're gonna use this next, so you'll see how we end up using this. All right, so let's just go ahead and unplug this, and okay. So in our next one. And again, I'm not going to install this one, but this is a GTX 650 or GTX 1070 Ti, and you can see that it's going to fit in here. And it can fit further, it's just that these cords are in the way here. And you can move these out of the way. But so we're not going to install this 1070 Ti because it takes the same 8 plug. But what we are going to do is I have a GTX 1080 Ti, and so in this one here, what we're going to do here is we can do this one of two ways. We can take, so what I like to do actually here is, this is a separate power cord coming from the case here. It's not running a hard drive or anything like that. What I like to do, and these are 75 watts. A 6-pin is 75 watts. And so you can just go ahead and get this adapter, which is a power adapter from a hard drive to a 6-pin. And so you just Just plug that in there. And you can plug this in here, like so. And then you can use this adapter here, and you can plug this in as well here. Now, another option that you can do here, which I'm going to do right now, in this case, I might do this other option. I run a 6-pin to 8-pin all the time when I'm running like the 1070 Ti, where it's just one 8-pin. But, and I don't, you know, depends on who you talk to. But what you can do is you can take this one, because basically these are 75 watts, but they actually will pull more than that. So you can plug this into here. I got it wrong. And then what you can do is there you can take one of these, and you can use again one of your hard drives. And I don't have a hard drive in here yet, but you could use one of these hard drive plugs. And now you've got, and plug this into here. And now you can do this way. Where I'm running the 1080 Ti, a lot of times this is the method I'll use, where I'm running a 1660 RX 580 or a 1070 where it's just a 8-pin. I'll just use that 8-pin adapter. So this is another method of this, and this is very common that people use. Now, if you're using mechanical hard drives that take more power, you may or may not want to use this option. But at any rate, if you're just running an SSD off of here, it's fine. So now let's move on. What do you do if you have two 8-pins? I don't really recommend you running two 8-pins, just because you really should have another 6-pin. Now what I've done here is, one thing that these HPs come with is they come with 600 watt power supplies, but they also come with 400 watt power supplies. Well, one time I ordered one, and I accidentally wasn't paying attention to the power supply, and it was a 400 watt power supply. So I just went online and I bought a 600 watt power supply HP, went into the version 1. So this particular case, actually, I'm just going to go ahead and unplug this, or I'm going to leave that one plugged in. So this particular case has, I'm going to unplug that for a minute. This particular case has two. Okay, this particular case has two 6-pins in it, but that's only because I swapped out this. When you buy version 2, it won't. But I do testing with the 2080 Ti in here, and so that's one reason why I got this. And I don't know if I'd recommend running this 600 watt 100% with the 2080. I am only testing with it. You can swap out this power supply if you want to. The thing is the screw holes aren't going to line up because but you could drill some new screw holes to put another power supply on here. And if you want, one of the videos I have coming up also is I'm going to transfer all of the components here into another case. But you could actually put a different power supply in here if you wanted to. All right, so let's just go ahead. I am going to put a 2080 Ti in here because I am going to be doing some testing. I have a video coming up where I'm testing 8 to 10 CPUs on the E5 2600 version 1, version 2, the 1600 version 1, version 2, which is the X79 platform. And then I have another one coming up on the X99 platform. And the X99 platform in the HP is the HP Z440. And I really like the Z440 system if you're going to run, say, a 2080 Ti or a 3080 Ti. But for right now, I'm just going to show you, you can do this. I would recommend swapping this power supply out, though, that has 2 6-pins in it. It seems like this power supply is heavier than the other one, and so it might handle more wattage even though it's 600 watts. Anyway, let's so let's go ahead and take this card out. Before I put the card in, I'm going to go ahead and I've got another one of these here. So I'm just going to put this here. And where we had this adapter here, I'm going to plug it in here. So now I'll have 2 of these. Okay, now that we got this card in, let's plug these in. And I'm good to go. We'll do a little cable management. Okay, so again, I'm just going to review real quick here. Like I said, you can. This card here doesn't have any power to go to it. Obviously, if you're gaming, most of the gaming cards is going to take power. So you've got your 6-pin here, your 8-pin, your 1080 Ti, 6-pin, 8-pin. So that's basically it on the video cards. I'll have these adapters in a link below, so you know where to get those. And that's it for the video card.
Okay, really quick. I've showed this in my prior videos on systems, but I just want to make it clear on video cards that you can run in this in the HP Z420, because it might be confusing because I am putting the 2080 Ti in there. So these are the graphic cards that you can run in there for sure. Now, so we got the GTX 1650 Super and the RX 580, but there are a lot of cards that are like the RX 570. There's a lot of cards that are below these cards, like the 1050. Any cards below these 2 cards here, you can obviously run in the HP Z420. But you can also run all of these here, including the Super and Ti versions of these cards, or the XT versions of these cards. But let's go into the newer cards. Now, you can run the RTX 2080, but not the Ti. So the 2080, the RTX 3060, now when you get to the RTX 3070 and the RTX 2080, I put these in blue. Could you run them? Yeah, but you would have to swap out the power supply. But would I recommend doing that? No. The reason why is because the CPUs that are available in the 2600 V2 and V1 and the 1600 V1, V2, you're going to be bottlenecking those GPUs. So if you were to run anything, if you were to run these cards, and also over here on the AMD side, you could run the RX 6800, But the RX 6800 XT, the X639 XT, and newer cards as they come out, the CPU, you could run it, but you're going to be bottlenecking your CPU at this point. And so, and I put these two, the 3070 and the 2080 Ti, in blue here, just because, yeah, could you run them? Yes. And could you get performance with them? Yes, but again, you're going to be bottlenecking, and again, you're going to probably have to at least get the 600 watt power supply that has the two 6-pins, or just buy a different power supply, a 700 or an 800, 900 watt power supply to run these cards here. And the reason why I don't include the ones in red is because you're going to be severely bottlenecking the CPU that you can get in this platform. So the only reason why I am running the 2080 Ti is because I don't have a system that I built with the X79 platform. I am going to be building one, but this is the only platform that I have right now to test some of the X79 CPUs, and I want to make sure that I want to make sure that I'm going to be fully utilizing the CPU, and so that's why I'm putting the 2080 Ti. But I would never put the 2080 Ti in there as a permanent gaming solution. It's just for testing purposes only, and it's mostly just because of the power supply and bottlenecking of the CPU. Okay, so if you've never opened up a case before, I know some people watching this have and some people haven't. I just want to go over this. You're going to see with my mouse here, those two connectors right there are the hard drive connectors. Then there's also two right here, and you can't see them because they've actually got hard drive cables plugged into them. But these are where you're going to plug your hard drives in. You don't want to plug them into these gray ones here, because this is SSD or SATA, but it's a slower version. It's 3 gigabits per second instead of these two here, and these two here are 6 gigabits per second. I believe the black ones are for SAS drives, but they are SAS or SATA, and then these ones are SATA. So you can use any of these four right here. So let's go ahead and install an SSD into here, and because I don't show this really well on plugging this into the motherboard, I just wanted to show this real quick on where you put your hard drive cables. Okay, so when we open up the case here, more than likely there's going to be a hard drive in here. Sometimes it could be a terabyte or 2 terabytes, so if you wanted to use it for extra storage, you could. Sometimes they'll come with an SSD card, but normally when they do, it's 120 gigs. Sometimes you'll get lucky and get a 250 gig. But in this particular case, we're going to go ahead and remove the hard drive. And in order, if you haven't done that before, this is what feeds the motherboard. The data from the hard drive. This is the power to the hard drive. We're just going to unplug those. The HP has these right here, and you just plop these out like that, and it takes the hard drive comes out. Now, there's a couple of ways to do the hard drives in these. If you want, you can get one of these adapters right here, and this one was made so you can put an SSD on each side, and then you can just fit this right into the adapter that came out of here, the hard drive adapter. And I'll have a link where you can get these. I'm not going to use this particular one, but then this just slides. If I can get it in the right spot, there we go. Oh, come on. Sorry, it's upside down. So then these just slide. This just slides in there like that. This particular case, I'm not going to use this though. One thing I am going to show you, I mentioned it does have a handle here in the front. This handle right here. If you take this
let me just turn this way. So if you, these 3 tabs right here, just undo them. So all you have to do is just pull this tab and this comes out, but this actually holds SSDs in here as well. So if you wanted to, you could put your SSD in here. And it just goes just like that adapter there. They go right here, and then you just plop this back in. For this demo purpose, I'm not going to do that with this. Sometimes they don't come with the handle, but most of the time, from what I've seen, they come with the handle. That's all you have to do to plop that out. And most of the time they come with a CD player as well. A lot of people don't use CD drives anymore. Anyway, oops. Didn't quite get that right. Side in. Okay, so really quick, let's talk about so all I'm going to do here with this card, as far as SSDs go, they're not like hard drives. Hard drives, you really should have them stable, screwed in or something like that. SSDs, you can put them in different ways. I'm just going to put this one in this way. So I'm going to plug this back in. If you've never done this before, there's a notch there, so you can't plug them in the wrong way. There's a notch on this one. Let me just show you the notch there. There's a notch right here. And so we're just going to plug this in real quick. And in this one, I'm just got 2-sided tape here, and I put that on already. And I'm just gonna put this right here for now. We just need something to hold it. When I've been testing, sometimes I'll even just let them dangle. But anyway, so that's a fast way to install a hard drive. Again, you can order one of these adapters, put it in here, or you can use the adapter up here. Okay, so now that we've got the hard drive installed, I want to show you an option to a hard drive, and that is, so what I'm running in this system here, you'll notice I don't have a hard drive here anywhere because I'm running this right here. What this does is this system will not boot off of an NVMe, but it will boot off of an M.2, a regular M.2 SSD SATA drive. And so this takes both. This takes an NVMe here and then a regular M.2 card here. And so then you just run this. You run your motherboard cable. I got, where am I? So you just run your motherboard cable into here, and it actually has another M.2 slot right here as well. But you'll just run that here, and then what you can do is you can boot off of this M.2 card because it will recognize the M.2, and then you can install your programs on your NVMe. And just so you know, if you're not familiar, just because you have an M.2 card doesn't mean it's an NVMe. Some of those M.2 cards are SATA drives, and this is a SATA connector right here. This is a SATA port right here. So anyway, so that's how you would run. And so that's what I do here is, so I don't have any SSDs here. I just have my M.2 here and then my NVMe here, and run all of my games off of my NVMe. So that's just another option that you can do in these systems if you can't boot off of an NVMe. Or you can just have a regular SSD and have one of these with just an NVMe and install your programs that way. I just prefer to do it this way. Okay, so the next thing we have to do is we've got to put a fan in here. One thing about these cases when they were made, they took cards like this. Again, they were video editing with these. They didn't generate as much heat as the cards today, and they kind of blew the air out this way, or they put a card like this in here. They didn't have these kind of cards, but where these are called blower cards, and they blow the air out of the case instead of into the case. All the cards that we're using today, we're using cards that are basically going to blow the air up, and it doesn't matter whether it's the Radeon, the GTX 1080, 1070, 1660, the RX 5600, 5500, 5700. When they have the fans on this exposed on the side like this, they blow air up into the case. So we've got to get the air out of the case. And believe it or not, even though these cases are small and narrow, all we need is one fan in the front here. And then what I do is I just turn the fan speed up inside the case, and it keeps the CPU and the case nice and cool for gaming. So let's go ahead. So what we're going to do is we're just going to put this fan in. Now, there's no good way to get around these cables here. If you start moving around, they start pulling out over here. I've seen these cases with fans attached here. I don't know how they ran the cables for it. They must have run them maybe underneath all this stuff and around. But all you really need is, I believe this is a 92 millimeter fan. We just need to put this fan right here, and it doesn't even matter that it's right up against the case here. We just need to put this fan here and get the air blowing out this way. And so what I usually will do with these cases, I'm not worried about putting these back in because we need the air, and it does have vents here too as well that the air can escape out of, but I'll leave these off just to get the air out of the case. So what we're going to do here is we're going to put this fan underneath these wires, and you have to be careful. I tried putting a 120 millimeter in here, but when you pull on these cables, they come unplugged from the motherboard. So that's why I got this, and because of this groove here, we're gonna put this fan right here, and we want to set it back further from here. So if you get later on, if you upgrade a card and you get a longer card, it'll fit here. You'll have to push these cables out of the way to do that, to put a fan there. Now, I'm not going to be worried about attaching this thing, screwing it in, because there's just not a lot of room to work here. But you can do it either way that you want. You can either use double-sided tape or you can use super glue. I wouldn't use a lot of super glue, just so it makes it easy for you if you need to replace the fan or you want to put in a different fan. So I've just put some double-sided tape on the bottom of this, and I'm just gonna put this in here. And then it does have a fan header over in here. I'm not going to use it. I could use it, but I'm just choosing not to use it. It shouldn't control the fan, but I just want this fan to have all the power. So I just bought this adapter here, a 3-pin adapter, and that is a 4-pin fan there, but you could still use it. You have to shave off one of these ends here to give it to fit on, but I want this fan to be running at full speed all the time. And this isn't a super loud fan, but you have to have this fan. If you do not have this fan here, then the card will get hot, because these fans can't keep up with the air that's generated here. So now we're set to go, and okay, so I hope that was helpful. Be sure to catch my videos on, I am doing a testing on the X79 Xeons, the version 1, version 2s, which is the 2600 and the 1600s. Doing the testing on the X99 Xeons, somewhere between 8 and 10 of those as well, on the 2600 and 1600s. And so catch my other videos on AAA gaming at 2K for $530, 60 frames per second or higher. AAA gaming at 1080p at 60 frames or higher for $350. Then catch all my other videos that I have come out. Make sure you subscribe again and hit the bell notification for my upcoming videos. And if you're not familiar with the Xeons CPUs, be sure to catch those videos on my testing of the Xeons. They make great gaming CPUs, and there's lots of options to on the Xeons that can run all the cards today, including the new ones. Anyway, this is TJ with Tech Made Easy. Thanks for coming to the channel. Have a great day and happy gaming.
Now that was easy peasy.